What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our championship week college football preview and picks. As always, I got Ty joining me here to break down this week's 9 games for all the marbles, and we'll talk about last week as well in rivalry week. I had a pretty good week going 9-1. I didn't expect that to go, that good at least. But obviously the Michigan game, obviously we look like geniuses taking that one. I think that was probably the biggest upset of the week, if I guess non-bias.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could start with that game. Tough decision, but yeah, we did both pick them. Came out on the right end of that, and I think that's was it four in a row that Michigan has won in this series. This one coming as 20 and a half point dogs. I think Michigan just owns Ohio State. I think you have to say that at this point. And I will continue to say that until the end of time. I'll let them hear it forever.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and then you got other upsets. I think South Carolina, pulling off that win, them not getting a college football playoff possible bid is crazy. Miami, I mean, there's a lot of confusion and overreactions and everything. And then for our locks last week going 4-2, Tulane just didn't show up, so didn't have to worry about that one. Then the Auburn plus 11.5. It was there for the taking. They lost by 14, but Auburn just couldn't capitalize on that.
Yeah, an exciting one for me. Notre Dame minus 7.5. If anyone watched that game, they were up seven, but USC threw a pick in the end zone in the last, I think, like 2 minutes of the game. That was returned 100 yards for a touchdown. So pretty cool cover there. And another winning week for me, which has been rare this year.
And then hopefully this week we can get another winning week. And I'm going with Army plus 4.5 versus Tulane. I think that game's probably a big toss-up right now with Tulane's college football playoff hopes out the door. UNLV, Boise State over. I like that over. I think there's gonna be lots of points scored in that one and in the Iowa State ASU game. It feels like these Big 12 games always live up to the expectations, and there's always a lot of points. I like Texas minus 2.5 versus Georgia. It just seems like it's their year. No matter what happens, I think Texas is going to get revenge and get a win. And then Penn State, Oregon, I like the under. I think Penn State's not going to show up because they don't show up in big games. And SMU minus 2 versus Clemson. I think that's just more of a dart throw.
Yeah, I'm going to join you with the Iowa State, Arizona State over. I think Scatterboo for Arizona State's due for a big game, and I could see this being neck and neck. So I think there's going to be a lot of points in the second half. I think Georgia and Clemson both win outright, so obviously I think they cover as well. Just hard to, I mean, Georgia went into Texas and dominated them, so hard to bet against them. And then Clemson, just hard to bet against them when SMU hasn't really been in this spot in a really long time. I'm going with Oregon to cover against Penn State. Like you said, they just don't really show up in big games. I'm also going with the under in that game. Just looking at the way both of those teams have been playing. Oregon, I think it was 16-13 against Wisconsin. Penn State 20-13 against Ohio State. So low scoring games. And then I'm going with the under in the Clemson game because I think if they win, it'll be on the heels of their defense.
And then we'll move to the first game, Friday night Conference USA. These two teams actually played last week, which is pretty rare nowadays, at least with the expanded playoff and new conferences. Western Kentucky won at home. Now they have to go on the road because it is a smaller conference. The home team, the best team in the conference, hosts, and it's going to be Jacksonville State. And I think Western Kentucky is going to go on the road and beat the same team 2 weeks in a row to win the Conference USA.
Yeah, I just think it's tough to beat the same team twice in back-to-back weeks, especially. I mean, it's tough to beat a team twice at any given point, but back-to-back weeks is tough. So I'm going with Jack State. That's pretty much all I know about this game is that it's a rematch.
And then I think you'll probably be watching this one instead. The American Championship, Tulane, Army. Like I said, it's a big coin flip, and I think it's an interesting case. If Army were to win this game, they win the conference championship, they beat Navy. Like, what do you do if you're the selection committee? Because this Army team could finish 12-1 with a conference championship. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm taking Army, and I kind of want to see that chaos ensue because of that.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for the Army, obviously, but that being said, after watching them against Notre Dame, their defense is just not very good. And Tulane, I know they took that bad loss last week to Memphis, but they can still move the ball very well. They have a lot of pieces on offense, so I think they can move it well on Army here. And I mean, if we know anything about Army's offense over the last 50 years, it's that they can't keep up in a high scoring game. and they can't really come from behind. So I think that's going to be the case here.
And then also at 8 o'clock on Fox, great matchup. And I think UNLV, if they somehow can pull this one off, I think they get in the playoff. Let's be honest here. This UNLV team, what they've went through this year, what were they 4-0? Starting quarterback doesn't get paid enough money. So he's just transferring. He just stops playing football. So you have to throw your backup in. And I'm sure I think there were a few other players as well. So lots of changes for this UNLV team. And it's pretty remarkable that they're here in the Mountain West Championship pretty much playing for a spot in the college football playoff. But with that being said, as long as GNT's on the field, that's all that matters. And I like Boise State.
Yeah, I think this game is a perfect example, first of all, of why the expanded playoff is so great. We wouldn't, I mean, this would be a good game in years past with the 14 playoff, but we wouldn't care that much about it. But this year, Boise State's playing for a bye in the playoff, and UNLV, it's a win and you're in situation. So this is a huge game and a great way to start championship weekend. That being said, I think Boise State just won't be denied in this game. I know going against my philosophy, hard to beat a team twice. But UNLV having to go in there in the cold, I just think Boise State with Ashton Genty, they're just going to feed him the rock like they always do and grind their way to another win and a bye.
And then moving to Saturday, like you said, I think this game is it's a little more enticing now with the college football playoff. Obviously, these teams won't get in, but it is good football, and I'm going with Ohio because a former high schooler of mine played on the football team. He is the starting running back for Ohio, and he's having a really good year. And because of that, I'm taking the Bobcats.
Well, now I feel like the bad guy taking Miami, Ohio, but I'm going with the Red Hawks here. They've had a solid year in the MAC. In Miami, Ohio, I believe they haven't won the MAC since like 2010. It's been a long time. So big time for them to be back in this game with an opportunity, and I think they get it done.
But more than likely, you're going to be watching this game, the Big 12 championship, and it's for a spot in the playoff. There's nothing else you can say about it. Iowa State, Arizona State. Arizona State's trending upward, where this team kind of was, I don't even know if they were going to finish 500 early in the year. There was just that hope. Then they've just ripped off, I think, what, nine straight, eight straight, something like that. And Iowa State, they ripped off nine straight, and they're 1-2 in their last three. So, these two teams are trending in the wrong direction and or in different directions, and that's why I'm going with the Sun Devils. I think in Jerry's world, I think Iowa State they don't live up to those expectations when they have the high expectations, and Arizona State has nothing to lose at this point. So I like Arizona State in this situation.
Yeah, I'll be honest. This game's a little bit of a coin flip, but I just think Arizona State's been so much fun to watch this year that maybe that's kind of what swayed me toward them. But just the fact that they were so bad last year and in 2022, but last year they started, I think, 1-7, something like that. And ever since then, Kenny Dillingham has been putting together a coaching masterpiece with this program. And I think I'm going to continue to ride the wave. I think they get it done here in the Big 12 championship. And this, again, this is why the 12-team playoff is so great. A team like Arizona State, who had no expectations, can play their way into the playoff. And I think that's what they'll do.
Then moving to the SEC championship, obviously we talked about it already. Georgia went into Texas and beat the brakes off them for their only loss this year. Now Georgia has had its slip ups, and I think that's what's going to happen here in this game. Texas, it's going to be kind of the other way around. They're not going to make any mistakes. Where Georgia, we know that they are not a first half team, and if there's any time to get on Georgia, it is in the first half. So if Texas wants to win this game, they got to put the throttle down early. And I think they're going to be up 14-0, probably 10 minutes into the game. And I think it's just going to be too much for Georgia to come back from.
Yeah, I think Texas was really impressive last week, and I am surprised by the line. I know, tough to beat a team twice. Georgia's been they've been struggling. I mean, no other way around it, but I just think the way they walked into Austin the first time they played and just absolutely dominated that game. I don't even know if it was as close as the score showed. It's hard to see this going a different direction on Saturday. I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be within one possession. But I think Georgia's defense is just too much for that O line of Texas again. And I think that'll be the difference, even if Carson Beck struggles again.
And then at 7:30, Sun Belt, you got Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Great name. Taking them. Know nothing about them, but they're 10-2 this year. And, you still got to win 10 games and get to this point.
Yeah, I don't know a lot either, but like you said, that's a hell of a name. Probably the best name in college football. Thundering Herd, I guess, is pretty good, but give me Louisiana at home, getting to 11-2, underrated team this year.
And then at 8 o'clock, probably I don't want to say the biggest game, but 1A, 1B with the SEC championship is Penn State, Oregon. You get 3 versus 1, 11-1, 12-0. And I think this would be for a playoff spot if it's last year for
Mhm.
the 14 playoff spot. And I don't think it's going to matter because I think Oregon's just going to roll. They're just on a mission right now. I think this team just sees what they can accomplish because they're already undefeated at this point. The goal is to go win the Big Ten championship. Then after that, it's just beat whoever's in front of you. And I think they're going to get that first round bye, still be the 1 seed. And I would say it runs through Eugene, but it's not how we're going to do it this year. And I just think it's Dylan Gabriel is just playing really good football. I know he hasn't had his best games as of late, but he shows up in the big moments, and people tend to forget that at Oklahoma and UCF. That's what he did.
Yeah, this one I was kind of leaning Penn State, believe it or not, earlier in the week. If anyone remembers 2016, that was Penn State's last Big Ten championship. And they had that blocked field goal against Ohio State, kind of lucked their way into the game and pulled the upset. And it just kind of feels similar to that year where they kind of backed their way into the Big Ten championship, and are poised to really shock the world. And, they could even have an argument to be number one by the end of the weekend. But that being said, this comes down to the guys standing on the sidelines. Dan Lanning coaches circles around James Franklin when it comes to in-game coaching. He's proved he can win the big games this year, even. And James Franklin just has never really proved that he can win a game of this magnitude. So give me Oregon by 7, we'll say.
And then probably, I think this one's probably the biggest for college football playoff implications because Clemson, they win, they're in. But it's interesting to see what would happen if Clemson were to win and what they do with SMU, because I think that's probably the biggest question mark that the committee has at this point. Obviously, if SMU wins, they're automatically in, and the 12 you see right now is probably going to be the 12 you get. So I like the Mustangs here. I think they're just on a mission this year. I did predict them at the beginning of the year to go 9-3. I didn't think they would be this good, but I did think they were going to shock some people the first year in the ACC, and they even exceeded my expectations. And I think I'm just going to keep it rolling. This team hasn't been good in a very long time, and it's great to see them, being this good their first year in the ACC.
Yeah, I agree. It's been huge for SMU to make this leap in year one. I don't think anyone really expected them to be to this level in year one. But that being said, I think Clemson just has been in so many of these big games before, and SMU really hasn't had the experience. So I think Clemson has that championship DNA still on their team. Obviously, they don't really bring in transfers. So a lot of these guys have played in a lot of these big games, and I think that's going to be the difference. Still a lot of talent in this program, and I think that's going to show on Saturday. But I will say, please put SMU in, even if they lose. I think it's going to open a lot of arguments for future years. If you have a 11-1 team be punished for losing their conference championship,
Mhm.
so I think Clemson wins, but the committee should still put SMU in and kick Alabama out. Not sure they will, but that's what should happen.
Yeah, we know about that SEC bias. It's real.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, we'll catch you guys back here in a few weeks for the first week of the bowl games. Obviously, we'll talk about how championship week went, and we'll start that week of the bowl games. We'll have 3 different videos for each week of the bowl games, and obviously, we will also pick our brackets as well for you guys for the 12-team playoff. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so you can stay up to date with that. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.